my YouTube channel. My name is Marissa Kaimilik. I'm a registered dietitian and binge eating coach. If you don't know me, I have been on YouTube for seriously what seems like my whole life, like over 10 years, but I've never really found my niche, been consistent. I make some vlogs and travel vlogs over on my other channel, but here is where I really want to, relay my passion for helping people recover from binge eating and create their most healthful life free from the restrict binge cycle. And so this is my first video at my attempt to do that. So I'm a little nervous. I haven't got my background situation all set up just yet, but bear with me while I kind of get back into the groove of YouTube, because I haven't posted a video on this channel in like a year and a half, I think. So it always kind of takes some adjusting to get back into the groove of things, but I'm so excited to finally be talking about what I'm passionate about and have my RD credential, so that way I am qualified to be talking about this, and I hope that you enjoy learning more about binge eating and cultivating a healthful relationship with food. Okay, so let's dive into the topic today. When people first start working with me, they really just want to know how to stop binge eating, but first, it's important to uncover why. Why the binge eating started in the first place. And there are a few main reasons I've identified through research, personal experience, and experiences with my clients. I want to share these reasons with you today in hopes that you can uncover the source of your binge eating so you can come up with a game plan to move forward in finding binge freedom. Essentially, all three of these reasons are linked. By solving one, you're helping another. Before we dive in, I want to give a general disclaimer that the information in this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only, so always seek out a healthcare provider about your unique healthcare needs. Binge eating is dynamic, and this video is only a small snippet into uncovering what may be underneath it all. All right, let's get into the video. So the first and most well-known reason for binge eating is restriction. Restrictive eating creates physical and psychological deprivation, which naturally and eventually leads to binge eating. Now, what is classified as restriction? Restricting is calories, macros, or restricting or eliminating major food groups such as carbs, fat, sweets, etc. Let's talk more about staying in a caloric deficit, as this is often the state that people want to be in when they're trying to lose weight. We hear it all the time. Count your calories, calories in, calories out, stay in a caloric deficit, and you will lose weight. While it is true, the reason why most caloric deficits are not sustainable is because when we live in a constant caloric deficit, our body is going to fight back. Our body doesn't want to be in a caloric deficit because those calories are needed for basic functioning and energy. Our body sees a caloric deficit as a famine. Internally, our body has no idea you're just doing keto or tracking what you eat on MyFitnessPal to eat less. It only knows that it's not getting what it wants or needs, aka a famine. Our body fights back in many ways to get what it needs, and one of those ways is by binging or feasting. The binge restrict cycle could also be described as the feast-famine cycle. It's no wonder why we binge eat if our body believes we're in a famine. When our body goes into a famine, when we finally are around the food or give in to those off-limit foods, we have this uncontrollable feeling come over us to eat. It takes over to where the binge begins. It should be noted that this is not your fault. It is truly physiological. The binge is a protective measure to make sure you get enough energy to maintain your body's processes. This is why women often lose their periods when they're in an extreme deficit, because the body needs to use these calories it does have to maintain essential organ function. And technically, the reproductive system is not essential, so it stops the menstrual cycle to reserve calories. On top of that, when we chronically undereat, our hunger and fullness hormones get out of whack. Our hunger and fullness hormones are called ghrelin and leptin. When we undereat, the hormone that regulates our hunger, ghrelin, increases, making the feelings of hunger more intense and more prominent. Meanwhile, the hormone that controls our fullness, leptin, decreases. So, even if we feel physically full in our stomach, the hormone that's supposed to tell our brain that we're finished eating and that we're full is not there. This is why you get that uncontrollable feeling to not stop eating even when you feel physically stuffed. And so the binge continues. And this is really frustrating because you feel as though it's mental. It's all in your willpower. So You place further restriction on yourself and promise that this time it will be different. However, continued restricted eating further erodes actual control one might have over their food intake. So it's not surprising that clients believe that any attempt to eat normally only leads to binging. In this mindset, one has no choice but to continue restrictive eating in order to maintain a hold on the self-control that they feel they've lost when the binges ensue. But it really isn't willpower. Like I said, your body's trying to protect you, and this binge is that protective measure. Continuing the restriction only perpetuates further binges. That's why it's called the restrict binge cycle. So if you're just getting started with some diet or restriction, you might be wondering, how long does the restriction have to last in order for it to result in binge eating? And I really think it depends on the person. If you're prone to binge eating, even a day or two of restriction could trigger a binge. But for those that have never binged before, empirical evidence leads us to expect that restrictive food behaviors that are maintained for about 6 months or longer may lead to binge eating. I can already hear your next question. How much of a caloric deficit could trigger this? Well, in the Minnesota starvation experiment on 36 men, the men were only restricted to 1570 calories. Not really what you think of as starvation, since most weight loss diets will recommend even as low as 1200 calories. In the study, the men were in this deficit for 6 months, and that's it. And that increased behaviors of binge eating. Now, this is just one study, and there's not very many studies out there pointing to a specific number of calories or percentage of a caloric deficit, so it's important to note that it's truly different for everyone based on their needs. From my clinical judgment, I think a lot of it comes from the mental intention of the restriction, which leads me to my next point. So the second reason is somewhat of a subcategory of the reason of restriction, but can be a book in and of itself. This is where a lot of my clients are stuck at when they come to me. They say, I've stopped restricting, I'm not dieting, I think I'm eating enough, so why can't I stop binging? This is usually when I uncover that they are still holding on to mental food rules. Mental food rules sound something like this. I can have the Oreos, but only 2. I shouldn't be hungry, I just ate. I can eat carbs, but not after 5. These are really sneaky rules because they don't sound like the black and white restrictive dieting rules that we're used to. It's not low carb, not X amount of macros, not however many calories, etc. They are almost conditional rules. I find the most prominent mental food rules that keep clients binging is the should talking. I should do this. I should do that. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. Well, the list goes on and on. This is a sense of doubt in the trust that we have in ourselves. We have to build back that body trust in order to stop the binge cycle. This starts from the outside in. We have to believe that we trust ourselves for our body to believe it. So if we are constantly second guessing our intuition, should talking ourselves, we're not instilling that we do trust ourselves. Listen to your body in every moment. If you're hungry and you just ate half an hour ago, then you're hungry. There's no should about it. If you ate more than yesterday, then today you needed more than yesterday. You shouldn't have eaten less because your body told you you needed more. Of course, this is simpler said than done, but identifying if you're wrapped up in mental food rules or should talking will help you understand why you may still be binging. Some other mentalities that get you in trouble with binge eating would be the all or nothing mindset and the farewell to food feast. The all or nothing mindset is that mindset when you have one little thing that's even a little off limits or a little off your diet and you think, well, screw it, I've already blown it. And then you eat through the entire pantry the rest of the day. It's like when you can't just have one donut for breakfast without eating the entire box. It's either you're all on the diet or you're all off the diet. There's no in the middle. The farewell to food feast is what happens when you are anticipating food restriction, such as when you are starting your new diet on Monday, so you spend all Sunday going crazy, eating all of the foods that you won't have access to starting tomorrow. If you're swearing off carbs, you'll find yourself on Sunday eating any and all carbs you can get your hands on. There was a really clever study done on chocolate lovers where they told them they would not be allowed to eat chocolate for 3 weeks. What they found was that before the study began and after the study completed, those participants who usually had a pretty modest intake of chocolate actually increased their intake before and after. This just shows that simply the mental anticipation of restriction alone can lead to the overeating or binging. It's like a farewell to food feast. So these are just a few ways our mentality alone can keep us stuck binging. So let's move on to the third and final reason. This last reason is really difficult. It's the fear of weight gain. The reason why this may perpetuate the binge cycle is because you don't fully allow yourself to eat enough or fully listen to your body. If you're constantly in a state of fearing potential weight gain, you may consciously or subconsciously undereat to try to control your intake. Going back to the first two reasons, the fear of weight gain could initiate either physical restriction or mental food rules. I mean, what happens when you have that fear of weight gain and then one day you feel a bit hungrier than usual? So you find yourself reaching for larger portions because that's how much you need that day. That's how much your appetite is leading you to. But you try to resist a little bit because you're scared that by eating the larger portions, you will continue the weight gain. By resisting, you are giving into restriction or mental food rules, which can then lead to the binging. Does that make sense? Essentially, the fear of weight gain itself doesn't necessarily cause the binging. It's the actions and mental states that usually follow the fear that ultimately lead back to the binge. This fear of weight gain, though, is a learned belief, meaning that it's not really about your body. It's about your belief system. Shout out to Brie Campos for that quote here. This belief system starts in our home life, how we've grown up, but it is everywhere in society. Through social media, television, magazines, movies, etc. It's so clearly not your fault that the fear is there. Although we cannot change society, even though we can sure as hell try, literally my life's mission, we can work towards creating a more compassionate and helpful inner dialogue to build a stronger belief system around our body. Now, if this fear is less aesthetic and more health related, I want to remind you that weight does not necessarily equate health. Research shows that even living in a bigger body and maintaining that is actually better for your health than constantly weight cycling as you go on and off diets. So if your set point weight is a bit higher than you think is healthy, remember that fighting your body to be smaller than it wants to be is more unhealthy than just living your life in a bigger body size. So you can participate in healthful behaviors you enjoy that add value to your life to support your best self without making it all about your body. Focusing on behaviors is more sustainable anyway, and weight is not a behavior. All right, this list is in no way all-inclusive. Everybody is different, and the binges start and continue for a multitude of reasons. And if you're feeling stuck, that's why it's important to work with a professional to identify why it's happening so that you can strategize how to stop. This list may be the top 3 reasons that I see with my clients and why they continue to binge eat, but that does not inherently mean that this is the reason why you continue. In my practice, I work with many of my clients to first and foremost problem solve the why, and then we strategize many different ways to overcome the binging by coming up with an individualized action plan to move forward in cultivating a healthful relationship with food and their body. If you are looking for help with binge eating, I have a group coaching program called Binge Freedom Breakthrough. In this program, we work on building a trusting relationship with our body, overcoming binge eating, and moving forward in creating that healthful and balanced life that we all dream of. I incorporate intuitive eating into my practice so you never have to diet again. And if you're looking for more information on how to join, use the link in the description below. Did I just get through my first YouTube video back on this channel? I think I did. That kind of went smoothly. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you stayed through this entire video, make sure that you give it a thumbs up and comment down below what you think, and also be sure to let me know what other types of videos you'd like to see from me, because I would love to take your ideas and put them into action so that way you're getting the help and the clarity that you need on your journey. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in another video. Bye everyone.